Well, welcome back to Speaking Llama, a Survivor podcast. We are back with our third exit interview of week 6, a 3-for-3 wild tribal councils, 3-for-3 blind sides. And I'm here, unfortunately, talking to the absolute legend, Shaun. Shaun, how are you doing today?
Yeah, look, I'm all right. It happened so long ago, and then sort of having to relive the trauma again is a little bit rough. But at least this time you get to do it like around your family, so it's a lot easier to swallow. But I'm doing okay. I mean, I feel like once you're out, you can sort of relax and enjoy the season a bit more now because I mean, I hate seeing myself on TV and listening to my voice and stuff. So now I get to just sort of relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, man, we got to say, we each pick a fantasy tribe at the beginning of the season, 5 players to root for. You were on my team, and so it was really fun to root for you all season. You made Team Alex very proud. So thank you for that.
Sorry, I couldn't get it done. Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. We're Team Alex is hurting right now, but it was fun to root for you nonetheless. One of our first questions for you, Shaun. Thinking back to your original season that you played just a few years ago, what aspects of that game did you want to replicate or do again? And then which aspects of that game did you want to change or adapt coming into this season?
Yeah, great question. I wanted to replicate my social game because I felt like that was a strength, and it was something that really sort of wasn't a worry for me. I could always build sort of good relationships because I think people see me as somebody who's a nice guy, very genuine. So I didn't think that would be too much trouble, but I wanted to be more ruthless and more self-interested this time around, and I feel like that's something that I definitely did and had a bit more fun with it, and had a bit more fun with sort of being a bit sneaky and a bit naughty and not so worried about perception and what people would think and how I came across. So I really enjoyed playing this season a lot more, and I also knew sort of I've got a really good understanding of the game. Reading people is a real skill that I wanted to improve too. I mean, I read a couple of books going out there to sort of help me pick up on people's like social cues and stuff like that, because I think there's a lot to be said for understanding that. And I think that's something George does really well. I mean, I know he said it the other night about playing poker and picking up on cues, and he's got a really good read on people. He was probably the best out there by far, and probably one of the reasons he's such a good player.
Yeah. Well, hey, related to that, as we're thinking about your first season and this season, one of my favorite players is David, the Golden God. One of my favorite moments is, the moment with you two swapping idols.
Glad you love it much.
Yeah. Sorry. Just being honest with you, man. So fun, really fun moment there. You played now with 2 of the most over the top characters that we've seen on Australian Survivor, with both Dave and George. What was it like playing with the 2 of them? What were some differences there this season?
They're very different players. If you're talking in terms of pure strategy, like George trounces Dave. I don't think there's been anybody like him that I've seen. Mm-hmm. I've been watching Survivor my whole life since I've been 12 years old and seen almost every season. And there's really been nobody like him in terms of strategy. And the read he has on the game and the way he's able to think 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, I feel like when other people can really only sort of see two steps ahead if they're really trying hard, is quite remarkable. But and this is something I've been honest with George about, somewhere where he does struggle is his social side of the game. And from all reports, this time he's been a lot better, but he really does still leave a path of destruction in his wake. When you're on the bottom, he can really sort of openly kick you when you're down, or he can belittle you or sort of poke fun at you. And when you're on the bottom, that just infuriates you. And I mean, if George does get to the end and I'm sitting on the jury, you don't want to be bitter, and but it's something you do take into account. And I think that's one thing I learned about playing the first time was just the importance of the social game, particularly for if you end and you want to pitch. I was always under the impression, being a Survivor fan my whole life, of, if I was ever out there, if I was ever sitting on the jury, I'd just give it to the person who played the best game. And I guess in its purest sense, that's how it should be. But when you live through it and you've been on the bottom and you've got somebody kicking you when you're down and stuff like that, it is hard to not take that into account at a final tribal council of like, hang on a second. Yeah, you played well, but I don't want to give you $500,000. I know it's better, but you really do take that into account. And in terms of Dave, I mean, I think he's the best all-round player that Australian Survivor's seen. He had sound strategy, a really strong social game, really great in challenges, and he was excellent at not burning any bridges or causing damage on his way through. Like, he could vote you out and you could still sort of be his mate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is right. You kind of mentioned in a pure world, maybe the best game is the one that wins, but also like Survivor is a social game at its core. And right. And so if you can't get these social votes because, you're stepping on people on your way to the top, then that's not an inherently great game. So I would say that that jury management is vital to playing a good game. But you talked about with George, right, him thinking kind of a couple steps ahead. I think one thing I'm interested about is we saw several people use previous players like Haley and George as targets, and right, you use Haley as a shield. What was your plan, like, especially in game, right? We saw you protect Haley early on. What were you thinking about in the merge as your plan to get to the end?
Yeah, great question, because I feel like that was a bit of a buzzword this season was shield, and that was a product of some high threat level returnees coming back, and just thinking about like, I'm coming into this with like a bit of a threat level, like how can I protect myself as best as possible? The best way to do that is with a shield. Like, it absolutely does work. Now the downside to the shield strategy is if you take that shield too far, they can hurt you. And it happened to me, it happened to Shawnee. We both took our shields too far and they both ricocheted the bullet off onto us. So that's the risk you run. But I know a personal regret and failure of mine was the way I handled my relationship with Haley, because we were really close, early in the game, and I was open with her that, look, it's in my interest to sort of go forward with you because you're a bigger threat than me. You're one of the biggest, if not the biggest threat out here. But I also really, really love the way she plays the game and could not respect her as a player anymore. And that's probably not a narrative I pushed hard enough for her, was just how much I was looking forward to playing with her because I respected her game so much. And had I pushed that more, and had she not felt like I was just sort of using her as a shield and for no other reason, perhaps our relationship wouldn't have fractured like it did post merge. She also thought that I was part of that potential blindside of her at that mutiny vote. And again, had we had a better relationship, maybe that's something that I could have salvaged. But it was just, poor relationship management on my part.
Yeah. Well, hey, Shaun, one of the bigger moves we saw this season was Sam's vote outs, with both you and Nina having idols. Now, one, I think you should not have to defend yourself for playing an idol for yourself. I think that was a great move. And one thing on our podcast we always like to acknowledge is if something doesn't make sense completely to us as the viewers, there's likely a lot of context behind the scenes of what's happening. So my question for you is, what were you seeing or hearing or feeling that night that made you play it for yourself rather than play that idol for Sam?
Yeah, like I was surprised at how many people came out and sort of like saying I can't believe you didn't play that for Sam. It was so obvious. And it's, I wanted to try and make the point. It was like, these people who are saying these comments are sitting on the couch and they're looking at Haley's confessionals where Haley's going, ready to make a move. I'm going to put some breadcrumbs out there and stuff like that. Like, we've got no idea. We had a minute-long conversation that Haley had with Nina. We all had barely had anything to do with Haley since she flipped on us at Merge. We had no reason to trust her. We tried to reach out a few times and she sort of knocked us back. So we really didn't have much trust in her at this stage. On top of that, we had Simon tell us that Nina was getting 4 votes and that I was getting 3 votes. And we absolutely thought of the possibility of perhaps they've given Simon the wrong names here, because, I mean, his and George's relationship is one out of necessity and not one out of want. But Nina, I and Sam spoke about it and we all decided that that is a possibility. So when we got the 2 idols, we were like, we're going to have to play them both, because if they've told Simon that it's 4 on Nina and 3 on me, when in reality it's 4 on me and 3 on Nina, then that means that one of us is going to go home. So we thought the safest thing was just to play an idol for me, play an idol for Nina, and then sort of, have it done. And that was the plan, literally, up until I was about to play the idol and Sam said, play it for me. He thought that he picked up on something, which, he ended up being right about. But it's hard. I'd left my family for 8 weeks for a second time. There was just no way I could have played that for Sam that night. Had Haley come up to us and she was like, guys, I'm ready to make a move. I'm telling you right now, the votes are on Sam. Let's make something happen. I happily would have played my idol for Sam. But given the information we had and how that night played out, like I just wasn't risking going home that night. No way. I mean, before I went out, I had a really great long chat to Mark Wales, because we're good mates. And he was like, mate, particularly deep into the game, always go with the move of least regret. And that's what was weighing on my mind. And I was like, I will never be able to live with myself if I play this for Sam and I go home. I could much more live with myself with Sam going home and me playing it wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at the end of the day too, right, it's sometimes one more day in Survivor is all that it takes to completely change everything. And so getting yourself one more day is never a bad thing. Right. In retrospect, we can say, yeah, maybe you should have played it for Sam. But honestly, like, I don't know that any of us would do anything different in your situation.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I thought the night Flick went home, the votes might have been on her. And she was, my number one in the game. She was my tightest person out there. And she's probably the only person I would have played the idol for simply to save. Like, I would have played the idol to make a move. But in terms of like wanting people around, like, she was the only one I would have played it for to keep around. But I also thought, like, I was pretty safe that night. And if I can just get through that night, great. And then, managed to get through another night by playing the idol for myself. And then that was exactly my thinking, was anything can happen. Like, just one more day. And it did. And Shawnee went home the next night. I was safe. And then the next night, next tribal council, I went, but I was really close. I'd had that opening, but it just didn't line up with Haley's game. And that was the problem. Otherwise, I could start to see like a path to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alex and I, this whole season, have been talking about, we thought you were playing a great game. You were set up to win, or at least go very far. And so it's kind of like you said, it just came down to really Haley's decision to ultimately like decide that that wasn't what was best for her. That comes down to it. Our last question for you, we always like to ask people this, is because we don't see everything, right? We see an hour and a half long episode of days and days of footage. Was there anything like fun or exciting or really memorable that you experienced out there that you'd want to share?
I mean, there's so much time. We could talk for an hour about all the fun that was left out. I mean, some of my absolute highlights were the breakfast reward. So we got coffee with the breakfast reward, and like I'm telling you, like we were all so buzzed the whole night. Like Simon was singing all night. We were doing sing-alongs. We were trying to get him to keep singing. Like we barely slept that night. Like it was such a highlight, and they could have done a whole episode on just, and another really funny thing that happened was, I mean, I obviously found that idol and kept it quiet. So after we swapped, Sam came up to me and he's like, "We never found that idol. Flick and Matt are still on that beach. Should I give them the clue so hopefully they can find it?" And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Give me the clue. We never found it. And then so Sam passed the clue on to Maddie, I think, at one of the challenges and stuff. And then having to play along with that, because at every challenge, Flick would come up to me and be like, "We haven't found that idol yet." And I'd be like, "Just keep looking. I'm sure it's." That was really like that doesn't come naturally to me, that stuff. So that was really hard to do. But looking back, it was really funny.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, hey, Shaun, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk with us today. We really appreciate it. Again, it was so fun watching you this season. We thought you played an absolutely incredible game. You are a legend, and maybe we'll see you again for a third time, potentially.
It would I'd have to have a bit of time off, and I think the only way I'd sort of even consider coming back was like maybe like a international version. I'm not saying that to sort of be chosen for that, because there's just been so many great players and stuff. But if I ever did get the call for that, I think that's the only way I'd be coming back.
Love it. Well, we'd be backing you up if you did. Well, hey, thanks again, Shaun. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was really fun.